Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
A record-shattering 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment last week. That's on top of the 3.3 million who filed the week before. Joining us now, CNN chief business correspondent Christine Roman, CNN anchor and correspondent Julia Chatterley, and CNN White House correspondent John Harwood. Romans, once again, just the top line number, double what it was last week. I think higher than the worst we even expected for this week.
Yeah, it really is a job shock here. And you've got 10 million layoffs or furloughs. That means in just the past couple of weeks, 10 million. It's pointless for me even to make a chart of it for you, John, because it just looks like a geyser going straight up. I'm actually even a little surprised that the state unemployment offices were able to handle this kind of volume.
They weren't.
Last week, we know there were so many people filing for unemployment benefits, they weren't even in some cases able to get all of them. Another notable thing about these numbers from the Department of Labor, John, is that the numbers doubled and it has spread from hospitality and restaurants into just about every corner of the economy, including healthcare.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, out for God's sake. So 10 million people in the last month. 10 million people have filed their first unemployment claims in March. This is only through the week ending March 28th. The economists are predicting that that represents 10% unemployment, which means there are more economists working than there are people that you know, people that I know. They should have a statistic for the people who tried to apply for unemployment and could not get through. Websites are crashing all over the place because the states have very antiquated, which is what I told you after they passed that $2.2 trillion stimulus package. That included unemployment on steroids, as Chuck Schumer phrased it, which is a good thing, but that you would probably not get access to that because the reason why it was a uniform amount, $600 for each unemployed person on top of what your state government was willing to give, is because if they had figured it out for each and every person's income, the states would never be able to process any of the claims because they would have to do math and such. And so that is why they came up with one universal amount for each and every person on top of whatever your state gives. And some states are so skimpy, they give like, $220, some $275. Some give 40% of what you were making up to, right? So now they're telling us that people are going to have to wait maybe 5 months to get their money. 6.6 million people in 1 week had to apply for unemployment. I'm telling you, I want a statistic for the people who tried to file an unemployment claim but could not, because if the 6.6 million number, those are the people who were successful. Those were the people that probably stayed up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning and then got through, right? Got through a website or got somebody to answer a phone call. So how many people did not file a claim because they couldn't file a claim? And that's on top of, states being overwhelmed by their own sick and dying. Which is a better stat? Which one do you want to talk about today? Because, we could choose, or we could do a combi show. I mean, this is just so unbelievable. You got 10 million Americans already out of work. And I'm looking at the sectors, okay? And it's more than what you think. It's not just restaurants, and it's not just the travel industry. It's now warehousing, manufacturing. See, now, here's the thing. If the president would have and should have invoked the Defense Production Act for everybody that manufactures anything and figured out what the closest thing to what we need they could manufacture, and had testing for the people in the warehouses and, called Stanley Steamer to disinfect those warehouses so people could be kept safe and had PPE for people to work in those warehouses, maybe. But, he's only invoked, the Defense Production Act when he wants to, not for this. And this is because the Chamber of Commerce, big business, doesn't want to produce. They don't want to. But anyway, it's beyond hotels now. It's beyond travel. It's beyond restaurants. It's now, obviously, gyms shut down early. But it's healthcare. Can you imagine this? health care, because doctors' offices and people who do elective surgeries, they're sitting at, they can't do the elective surgeries, the doctors. They can't. And some hospitals, this was the craziest thing I saw. I hope to God that this is not where we're at. Some hospitals are using dentists to do things like anesthesia and intubations and stuff like and one doctor surmised, for some of you, you know who I'm talking about, but I don't want to say, but one doctor surmised that we are this close to calling in veterinarians. Veterinarians. Yesterday when we left, my 5 p.m. number was 207,281 cases that we know of. So that just means that's how many people tested positive, right? But remember, there's a shortage of tests. Today's number at 2 p.m. was 234,768. So it was an increase of about 27,000 cases that we know of. The death toll is 5,586. And from some of if you follow me on Twitter at Randi Rhodes, you'll see that I've been retweeting some of the math geeks who are running these numbers, some of the math geeks who can see the pattern. Now, this pattern is pretty obvious. I mean, if you ever took an SAT test, right, you could spot the trend here. And it seems like the cases are doubling every 3 days. Every 3 days, you have a doubling of the death rate, So if that maintains itself, if that's the way it is, if that's what's going to be happening here, by Sunday, we'll look at about 16,758 dead in the United States of America. These are just U.S. numbers. These are not the global numbers. The global numbers are approaching 1 million cases. So we have states overwhelmed by unemployment claims. We have states overwhelmed by a lack of PPE. We have states overwhelmed by death. New York is Ghostbusters. Okay, that's just what it is. It's like the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. They just asked FEMA to send, and FEMA will be sending to New York City, my home, 85 refrigerated trucks to act as temporary morgues, 85 tractor trailers. So there will be job openings. Everybody get your ox cart and prepare yourself to... What do I say every day when we clean up after the show? Because I do the cleanup, right? I mean, I work with the boys. They're boys. I let them be boys. And every day after the show, I go around. I take everybody's garbage, and I take it out, right? I take out the garbage. I've been doing this forever, since the first day. And every day I walk up to Brett. Scott's not been here. He's at home, obviously. But every day after the show, I go up to my boys, and I say to them... Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Kidding around. It's not funny anymore. That will be an employment opportunity. Actually, no. In the 21st century, we use forklifts. That's right, forklift. I don't know how many people have ever imagined their own funeral. I know there are people out there that are very neurotic and, do prior planning to prevent poor performance, and they actually plan their funerals. Some people actually do. I never imagined mine would include a forklift. And even though I was an over-the-road truck driver for a year, not long, but for a year I did it. Honest way to make a living. I never imagined my funeral would include an 18-wheeler and a forklift. Did you? Anybody? RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.